David Lynch's decades-long career inspired a new generation of film and television. However, that inspiration resulted in a little too much borrowing from Lynch's source material. His 1997 film Lost Highway voices a critique of what he saw as the plagiarism of his own work. Lynch himself dismisses over-analysis of his films, and says he is simply guided by emotion during creation. The idea that Lynch, the Eagle Scout from Missoula, Montana, resents other directors seems unlikely given his corny, affable manner. It was his emotional state at the time of Lost Highway that created this response. Lynch was upset that portions of Twin Peaks and Wild at Heart were reused during his darkest period, following the critically panned 1992 film Twin Peaks: Fire Walk With Me. In an interview with Charlie Rose, Lynch addressed this point of his life.
In '92, after Fire Walk With Me, which is a film I love, but I think you could safely say it did not
critics didn't
go over so well. But I'm hoping that someday people would take another look at that film. But there seemed to be a strange dark cloud hanging over me, and through '94 it was sort of, maybe in '94 it started lifting.
Prior to Fire Walk With Me, Lynch's television series Twin Peaks debuted in April 1990 on ABC. It was a short-lived though influential cultural phenomenon that became undone by studio interference. In 1993, Oliver Stone produced the miniseries Wild Palms, also on ABC. The comic strip that provided the basis for the Wild Palms miniseries debuted in Details magazine in September 1990. While Stone didn't direct, he was featured prominently in its advertisements and appears as himself in the first episode. In a 1993 article, Entertainment Weekly stated, "With Stone signed on, even doing a cameo as a guest on a futuristic talk show, ABC gave the project plenty of creative elbow room." A fact that was sure to upset Lynch, as the studio forced him into revealing the killer of Laura Palmer sooner than he wanted. When Wild Palms premiered on television, comparisons were immediately made between it and Twin Peaks for its noir themes, surreal imagery, and Eastern religion. In a recent interview with Grantland, Bruce Wagner, creator and writer of Wild Palms, defends the comparisons to Twin Peaks. "It was never discussed. Perhaps that was deliberate. I was a fan of Lynch's feature work, but never saw Peaks. I know that sounds phony, but it's true nonetheless. I wasn't a big TV watcher at the time." Lynch was well aware of Wild Palms when it came out, and addresses it in the book Lynch on Lynch. "People said Wild Palms had something to do with Twin Peaks. To me it had zip to do with Twin Peaks. Zip. And all these rip-off things that came after didn't catch one whiff of what Twin Peaks was to me. But other people see similarities." Lynch associates Wild Palms with what he considers rip-offs, and is bothered by a comparison being made at all, when he doesn't see any shared meanings. Following Wild Palms, Stone directed the 1994 film Natural Born Killers, originally written by Quentin Tarantino. The film shares a strong resemblance to Lynch's 1990 film Wild at Heart, based on the 1989 novel of the same name. Both portray outlaw couples in love within a violent world. The opening scenes of both are grisly and violent. Both male protagonists are sent to prison. Laura Dern as Lula in Wild at Heart is raped by a family friend, while Juliette Lewis as Mallory in Natural Born Killers is raped by her father. Lula's father has kerosene poured on top of him and then is lit on fire. Mallory's mother has lighter fluid poured on top of her and is lit on fire. Lastly, there's a scene in Wild at Heart where Lula gets upset by a violent news report on the radio.
"Shot and killed her 3 children, age 7. Shot right between a heinous."
A local judge praised defendant John Roy, but was dismayed to learn that Roy had had sex with the corpse.
What?
Roy's lawyer was...
Meanwhile, Natural Born Killers is almost entirely about this idea of violence in the media. As with Wild Palms, Natural Born Killers repurposes many parts of Lynch's material rather than having it serve a more inspirational role. In Lost Highway, Lynch in turn remade scenes from both Wild Palms and Natural Born Killers. Jim Belushi stars in Wild Palms as Harry. He is unable to satisfy his wife, like Fred, played by Bill Pullman in Lost Highway. In both films following these impotent scenes, the men have nightmares of their wives being replaced by a man in their beds. In Wild Palms, that faces of Robert Loggia as Senator Kreutzer. Loggia went on to appear in Lost Highway as a very similar character, Mr. Eddie, and in both, the femme fatales have a relationship with Loggia. This includes similar scenes of Loggia with the women while observing pornography. Fred and Harry are both incriminated for killing their wives. Harry is framed using advanced video technology, while Fred seems to have actually killed his wife and it may have been recorded. In one memorable scene, Mr. Eddie is being tailgated on Mulholland Drive, and then he tailgates the original tailgater until he pulls over. An expletive-fueled rant about tailgating ensues.
Don't you ever fucking tailgate! Ever!
Tell him you won't tailgate.
Ever!
I won't ever.
Do you know how many fucking car lengths it takes to stop a car at 35 miles an hour? 6 fucking car lengths! That's 106 fucking feet, mister! If I had to stop suddenly, you would have hit me! I want you to get a fucking driver's manual! I want you to study that motherfucker! And I want you to obey the goddamn rules! 50 fucking thousand people were killed on the highway last year because of fucking assholes like you! Tell me you're gonna get a manual!
Get a manual.
Fucking A! Oh, God!
Wild Palm's first episode also has a tailgating scene on Mulholland Drive, where Lynch once again recreates a scene to copy the copier. He uses tailgating as a metaphor for appropriation, with the powerful Mr. Eddie warning the imitators to stop doing it. And finally, there's a scene from Natural Born Killers where Mallory stops at a gas station. She seduces the attendant, played by Balthazar Getty. Mallory says to him,
"Tell me you want me."
Then in Lost Highway, Alice, played by Patricia Arquette, takes car mechanic Pete, also played by Balthazar Getty, to a remote area. She says to him,
"You still want me, don't you, Pete?"
They undress, and later Pete says,
I want you. I want you, Alan.
You'll never have me.
This subtle change of reused dialogue speaks volumes about what Lynch is communicating. By casting Getty in a nearly identical role and then having him recite virtually the same words, Lynch is critiquing Stone's own reuse of Lynch's works. Lynch goes further by practically addressing Stone himself. In Natural Born Killers, Getty wants the girl. In Lost Highway, Getty again wants the girl, but Lynch has the mysterious Alice deny him, commenting on Stone's own creative desires. Lynch, of course, was influenced by directors himself. His resentment came from feeling other directors were lifting his material rather than being inspired by it. Lynch took concepts for filmmaking from French Impressionism and created his own wholly original pieces. Wild Palms and Natural Born Killers borrowed primarily superficial characteristics, and Lynch didn't respect a move like that from an artistic standpoint.